we had, since 2010, unemployment has not gone below 8% nationwide. The deficit now is almost double what it was even then. The debt of this nation is now as high as the gross domestic product of the nation. I think most people realize that if there isn't some sort of new leadership in Washington, that we will be 2 years from now and 4 years from now where we were 2 years ago and 4 years ago.
But there's another overlay this time around, and that's fairness. For me, this election of 2012 is about opportunity, but it's also about fairness. And so there's a lot more question about the top 1% that seem to be doing fine and getting ahead, and what happens to the 99%, the rest of us that are wanting to provide for our families, send our children to college, and have some left over for retirement with dignity, as we say.
And my message to New Hampshire voters is, if you like what you've seen for the last 2 or 4 years, if you think that forward, as defined by this president, means more of what we've had before, if the new normal, which is a term of art that has come about since 2008, is what we as Americans have to accept, then it's okay to vote for the status quo and the president. But if you believe that we can do better, that we ought to be trying different things like tax reform, fundamental tax reform, that partisanship, that having the battle only does not constitute victory, that it is time for our nation to start working together, Republicans and Democrats, to give a little bit, at least on the edges, to come up with some compromise, with some results. It's the only way that we're going to save this nation.
Certainly these have been very, very challenging times, and wherever I go, whether it's small businesses or families trying to get ahead or communities trying to thrive, no one wants more taxes, no one wants bigger government. And I'm the first to say that we need to have very efficient and effective government, and we need to keep taxes certainly to a minimum for people. So that's why I support going back to the President Clinton tax structure. When the economy was thriving, we actually added 23 million new jobs. And I think, frankly, those that were at the very top did just fine. We made plenty of millionaires in that era as well.
And all the discussion that we hear from the other side is tax the rich for some reason, because it's good. It's not going to reduce the deficit if it doesn't even start to pay for all the spending that they want to implement. And I'm sure that if they were in charge, they'd want to have another $1 trillion stimulus bill. It's a very different, the one thing that Annie, Kuster, and I can agree on is that we have a very different approach to the future of this nation.
So for me, yes, it's difficult to draw a line, but look, our tax code is based upon picking a level that feels fair to the majority of people. $250,000 in New Hampshire is a very comfortable lifestyle for most people, and so I feel that let's keep the tax breaks for the middle class and for people up to that level. That may be a household with 2 incomes that is getting to that level, but that above and beyond that, I think that people really are equipped to help us bring down these deficits. This is what it's all about, and we have to put it in the context of the deficits are really creating a problem for the business community and, frankly, for individuals, and particularly looking at our children.
And I believe in low taxes, less government, accountability, a strong national security. But I also believe that the time for the fight is over. It is now time to start working out these problems. And I said repeatedly yesterday, and will continue to do so, bring all these new taxes to the table. I won't rule out anything. If President Obama and Annie Kuster think that raising taxes on people that are providing jobs in this district, in this state, is good economic policy and will lead us out of the recession, bring it to the table. I disagree. I think it's a terrible idea, but let's talk. Because I believe, Chris, that you got to combine any plan for any increase in revenues with a very significant plan to reduce the growth of entitlements, which is eating this country alive.
I think anyone in the Nashua Chamber would agree that having these high deficits creates uncertainty in the business climate, and it's very difficult for companies making decisions about capital investment, about hiring new people, when we have these just trillion dollars adding up in greater deficits. So what I'm saying is we simply can't afford additional tax breaks at the very high level. You know, this Ryan budget that Congressman Bass has voted for has an additional tax break of $265,000 for millionaires. And when I inquired, how many people does that impact in New Hampshire? And this is not $1 million in assets. This is $1 million in income per year. It turns out it's 1/10 of 1% of the people. 349 people in New Hampshire.
And I would comment that my opponent has never met a tax increase that she didn't like. And she supported Mark Fernald when he ran against Jeannie Shaheen for governor of the state of New Hampshire on one issue, and that was implementation of a broad-based income tax for the state. And she wants to bring that philosophy and that position to Washington. She supports, right off the bat, income tax increases. I say, bring that to the table, but let's talk about comprehensive tax reform, lowering the top rates, raising other rates, simplifying the tax structure so that we can be more competitive economically. This is about getting the economy turned around.
My beef really is with this sort of do-nothing Congress. They have not taken up the jobs bill that the president put forward in the last 2 years. I think you saw a lot of movement on jobs in the first 2 years of the Obama administration, and then frankly we have not seen the action out of this Congress, Congressman Boehner, Congressman Bass's Congress, to take action that would create an environment for the private sector to create jobs. I am the first to say that it is the private sector that creates jobs. You know, there are some public jobs, obviously. I have a great deal of respect for teachers, firefighters, police, anyone in the military. But I'm the first to say that it's the private sector that grows the economy. It's